folks. Welcome back to CFE.dev. My name's Nick Taylor, your host. For today, we're back with two full, two stack. Make sure we're live. We are. That's good. Cool, cool, cool. All right. Yeah, thanks for joining us today. Today, I'm going to be talking about forms. Uh, Mainly, we're not going to cover everything, but I'm going to try and cover a bunch of stuff. Um, we're gonna just go over like the HTML web form itself, different ways you can access it, kind of what goes into it, and then yeah, we'll kind of delve into some stuff there. I'm just gonna pull up my notes here that we got for today's session. Of course, I can't find them, but that's all good. Let me just look for forms. There we go. I got my notes. Awesome. Cool. Yeah, so let's just kind of get started here. I'm gonna just go ahead and share my screen. Give me 2 seconds here. Still pretty fresh with StreamYard, but it's all good. Just got it in the wrong mode here. Okay, cool. All right, let's switch over to here, and I'm gonna go ahead and present. Share screen. And let's just do entire screen, screen one. Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. All right, everybody should be able to see that. I'm just gonna head over to the comments there. Okay, cool, cool. Nothing going on there yet. All right, so let's get started here. All right, I've got Dev2 open, which is all good. Okay, let's come to VS Code. Just gonna close my work here. It's been a busy day. All right, let's close that folder. Okay, and we're gonna just create a new one here. So I'm just gonna go to my dev folder. Whoops. There we go, and streams, I believe. All right, so let's make there, and then we'll say two full, two stack forms. All right, and let's do that. All right, and then let's do a git init. And there we go. Let's clear that out. Just gonna zoom in a bit here. And let's just open up VS Code in that particular folder that I'm working in. All right, so we got nothing in here right now. That's all good. Okay, yeah, screen size looks pretty good. All right, cool. All right, yeah. So we're gonna create a new file here. And we're not gonna be working with a framework or anything today. And I'm just going to be doing just raw HTML here with some vanilla JavaScript. So let's create a index.html. I'm just going to save that, and I'm just going to use, if you're not familiar, the name's escaping me, but if you use, Emmet, there it is. So you just put an exclamation mark and tab in VS Code, you get kind of like a boilerplate for HTML file. And there you go. Cool. So we're going to start off by creating a form. And so let's just do this. And I'm going to kind of keep everything right in here. So modern ways you wouldn't be doing this, but let's just do this for now. Border. So 2 pixels, solid black, sharp. And have our script in here. Index.js. Yeah, I guess we could do that. And anyways, we'll save that. I'm going to start live server. Live server. Okay. So another window. Let me get that out over here. Where did you go? Okay, just lost my live server window. There we go. Okay, there's a black line here for the form. I'm gonna zoom this in. All right, that's all good. Let's just see if folks are. Did the tweet go out? Yes, it did. All right, cool, cool. Just paranoid about stuff not going out. All right, so we got a form here right now, and you know what I'll do? Maybe I'll just put these side by side. So let's just bring this over like this, and I'll zoom this in. Actually, let's do half half. I'll zoom this in. All right, and let's just close the terminal for now, just so we have some more real estate. And we'll zoom this down one. Cool. All right, cool. Change the layout to make the code bigger. Okay, how's that? Is that okay, Brian? I'll just take myself out of the picture for now, which is good. Okay, that seems to be bigger. I'll zoom the page up a bit more. Cool. All right, so we got a form here, and let's just, you know, we're gonna. Okay, yeah, I can be in the bottom corner. Yeah, sure. There we go. Does that put me in there? There we go. There, I'm back. Okay, cool. So let's just put some stuff in the form, and this isn't going to be about accessibility as well and stuff, but these are things that you should think about. So I've got Copilot here helping me out here. So we've got it's got a label, and then I could do like input type equals text, and then you could have that. If I just save that, okay, and that's we're just gonna fix the CSS a bit here, and I don't need the border anymore. Okay, cool. Yeah, exactly. This is exactly what I want. Copilot. Cool. Not center though. All right. Copilot is definitely handy. Sometimes it gets in your way when you're trying to demo stuff, but yeah. And if folks still need to see things a little bigger, just let me know. I'm looking at it on the backstage on StreamYard, and it seems pretty good. Okay, so we've got some stuff here, and so we want to link the label to it. So you use the for attribute, and then like we're gonna add ID name here. This is one way you can do it. You could also have the input in the label, and it would be associated. But this is nice because as soon as you see, you can't tell that I'm clicking on the name label, but when I click on it, it actually gives focus to the name text input. All right, we're just going to put a few things in the form, and then we're going to talk a little more about forms here. So we can put other stuff in here, and let's just do not email, but let's do sure, why not email? Sure. Cool. And then there you go. All right, cool. We got a couple things here. Now, all right, we're all set up. I guess we can talk a bit about maybe we could do some rudimentary stuff like form validation. So we could add a required here. This is native browser stuff. So now if I submit, where is it? Nope, I don't want my password here. Let's put in button. Yes, thank you. There, yeah. So we're getting some stuff here. This is browser validation built in. There's other things you can do here. So like we'll touch on it, and I'm just gonna pull up my notes for a second here. And this is a live stream where I'm just live coding. If you have questions or comments, just feel free to drop them in the chat. So we've got a bunch of things that can go in a form. We've got text inputs. We've got type email, which is a different type. So for example, if I just type in some nonsense here and submit it, okay, I got to fill out this field first, but let's just do Nick and then submit. It's going to say, please include an at in the email address. So right away out of the box, you get a lot of validation. So you could say like nick at nickit.co. Why am I on caps? But .co. And then I could submit that and everything goes fine. We're not submitting this anywhere right now, but these are just showing some of the rudimentary things that you can put in a form, including out of the box validation that just comes with the browser. Uh, it should be noted though that this validation is only client side, even though you're not using JavaScript per se. It's still a good idea to validate all the input that you get on the server side whenever when you get to that part. I just kind of wanted to go over a few other types here. So let's do another one. Let's just do URL here. And we'll just say website. And I'm going to save this here and we'll just keep it in line with the others. So I'm going to fill out my name again, nick at nickit.co. And then I'm going to submit this and well, we'll make this required as well. We'll make them all required for now. And I'm just going to save that. And of course, got to type again. And so when I go to first submit this, it's going to say it's required. That's great. And then I'm like, okay, let's go google.com or I'll put my own website. I'm going to go submit. Let's go, hey, please enter a URL. So it's asking me to put a valid URL. And again, these are things that are native in the browser. They don't look as nice, but these are things you can put in place. But as I mentioned previously, it's always a good idea to, make sure you validate these things on the server side. All right, cool, cool, cool. Okay, so we've got all this form data here. Now, let's just do, and again, we're not using any frameworks here. So there are inline events you can do like on submit or on a button you can do on click, but typically you don't want to do those. So, and the main reason being is you can only add one event then. So like, for example, you could add many event listeners to something. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do. And you know what, I'm just going to keep it all in this one file. I'm not even going to bother creating other things here. So what you're going to see here is it's doing exactly what what I wanted to do. Okay, cool, cool. So let's just do this here. So the first thing is when the page loads now, I'll just save this. It's going to refresh. We're going to add an event listener. So if you're not familiar with event listeners, I'll just add this to the chat. All right. Cool. Now let's drop that in here. These are things that typically like if you're working in a framework, so say for example React, you'll have like an on click on a button. What's that's actually doing under the hood is adding an event listener like I just have here. So these are things that I think are important to understand. I'm still a firm believer of just build something. So like whether you learn the fundamentals right away or framework, I personally don't think it matters. Eventually you're going to need to understand the fundamentals. So, but as long as you can start building something, I think that's what's more important. And you'll start to understand stuff as you go along. So let's look at here now. So we got access to the form. So we can access it that way through just a query selector. I'm going to open up the dev tools here, and I'm just going to bring this to the center for a minute. And I will zoom in the dev tools. So, okay, and let's come here to the terminal. So we can do like we have in our code there. So we can do document.query selector. We can say form. We got our form there. And I'll zoom this in a bit more so folks can see. Might be too much, but yeah, that's a little too much. All right, there we go. So you can see it's our form on the page. It's got the name, email, and all that. So that's great. That's one way to get it. Another thing you can do is on the document, there is a collection of forms. It's a HTML collection. So this is another way that you can actually access a form. And you can see here, there's only the one form, and you can access it through an index. So you could do this, for example. And it's going to get you a same reference as this query selector form. So that's super handy. Again, this is stuff that you probably wouldn't need to do in a framework, but I think it's kind of neat to just show these things. Now, you could do other things. You could come here and you could say ID equals like my form, or yeah, and that'll save and it's going to refresh here. And then now I could say like document dot query selector again, and I could get it with the ID. So this is just the ID query selector syntax. And there you go. And I've got it again. That's great. But there's another way you can actually do this. And now if we look at document.forms again, you're going to see it still has the one form in the collection there. And all of a sudden, you're going to notice you can access it in another way. You can actually do document.forms by form, or actually, this has to be quotes. And that's another way you can get it. You could also use the name. And naming forms can be important if you have multiple on a page. So you could say named form. And we'll come back here. It's going to refresh. And then if I open up this collection again, you're going to see still the one form, but there's different ways you can access it still. So you can do document.forms 0, like I was saying, not 9. That works. You can do document my dash form. That works. And then you can also do named form. And that works. So these are just kind of some examples of how you could access a lot of this in many different ways. Now, again, if you're in a framework, you probably won't typically be doing these things to get access to a form, but what we can look at now is if we come back to the code here. So I'm going to bring this down a bit and let's clear that. Now we have this JavaScript here and we've got the form data and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a breakpoint in here. So I'm just going to put an explicit debugger. And if you haven't checked out the debugging stream we did last time, definitely check that out. I don't know if you can drop that in the chat for me, Brian. I'm a little busy at the moment. I should have probably had a link to that ready. Okay, cool. So we've got a debugger here now, and I'm going to fill out the information here because it's required. Nick at nickyt.co, and then let's do t.co. And I'm going to submit it, and we're going to hit a debugger here. So I'm going to just open this up so we can see this a little better. Okay, so we're in the debugger now. And all right, so we're in the form, and you can see over here. So we had the form, we added the event listener, so on submit. So when the form gets submitted, and we have this event that we have access to. And one of the things you want to do is, so we're using JavaScript here now to handle the form submission. So the first thing you want to do is you want to prevent the default action. And the default action is actually submitting the form without JavaScript. So that's what that's for. And if we just step over that, and that's going to help you there. Now, here's one of the form data, form APIs that are super interesting. And if you've been using a framework like Remix, you'll see that they use these things. They leverage the web platform primitive. So they're using form data. And so we have the form here. Now, there's a couple interesting things here. the form here, it's the variable I defined here, and we're using it here. But we actually don't need to use that variable within here. Like if we open up the console, so E is the event, and I'm just going to open it here, and you're going to see what's in here. I'll zoom it in a bit, and you're going to see a few things. There's a lot of things we're not going to cover here today, but you're going to see there's the target and the current target. Basically, these are your actual forms. So you can use one of those if you want instead. So you could say, for example, here, clear, say e dot target. I'm not going to say form because it's a constant, but we'll just say my form equals, and then you're going to see it's the same form. So I'm just going to do a quick tweak here, and I'm going to modify this so we're not using form here. There's a form out there to add the event listener, but let's just say within here, we'll just do const form equals e dot target, and then that should be good. And just so it's named the same thing, but just to make it clearer, I'm just gonna, instead of having a variable, I'll just do this. I'm gonna save that. Let's reload this, and let me just close dev tools for a sec. And you know what? Let's remove the required and stuff for now. Or you know what? Let's make them all text so it's a little easier to validate. I don't have to type out full things right now because that's not really the point of this. That was just to show that you can use different kinds of built-in validation. So let's save this. And then, so now I can do this, this, and then this. And let's open up the dev tools, and I'll just shrink it down for a second. I'm gonna submit. Now we're back in the dev tools now, and let's shrink this one. Okay, so what you can see here now is we're back here. The debugger stopped the program, and I'm going to step over the code, and we're going to see here e.target is actually the form like I was showing before. So we have access to the form now, and we're preventing the default. And there's a really interesting thing about prevent default that I did a stream with Austin Gill, who works at Akamai. I'm going to drop a link to a really great series of stuff that he's done in regards to forms, but I've always put the event.prevent default at the beginning when you're in JavaScript in an event listener. And he made a valid argument that say some of, and it pertains to having progressive enhancement. So like if for some reason JavaScript doesn't work, you know, the form can still submit. So what they were suggesting is do the e.prevent default at the end, because if there's any JavaScript errors along the way, if we've already prevented the default action, the form is just not going to submit. This also takes into account that you'll need to be able to handle the form submission without JavaScript, which you probably should be doing. But that was just an interesting thing that he mentioned, that they mentioned when we did a stream. I'm going to drop that if folks want to check that out. There's the stream itself here, which is what I'm linking to. But if you look at the description, there's tons of links in there in regards to this whole file uploads. File uploads are a whole other thing, but it does use forms. And Austin has a really great tutorial series on that. And yeah, no, exactly, Brian. Yeah, I hadn't thought about it before either. I kind of treated it the same way, kind of like when you have a constructor and you put super first. I kind of treated it that way. But Austin made a valid point. So, and again, it does tie in a progressive enhancement. Okay. So we've got the form here. Now there's this form data, and I'm going to just grab a link for this for folks. Just pop this in the chat. This is one of the web APIs. This is form data. And like I said, Remix uses this. This is something like, as somebody who's done a lot of React, the forms have always been kind of like a weird thing in React, and libraries were created to get form information like Formic, React Final Form. There was Redux Form. Um, and the thing is, like in React land, it's because there's this whole like you want things immutable and stuff, but you literally have all of this to okay, Astro uses it too. Yeah, exactly. Most of the newer frameworks are starting to leverage the form data. Fresh is another one, which is from Dino. And it makes sense, like just kind of like how jQuery improved the platform. We've got all these just really good APIs, and I think a lot of folks aren't aware of them. I'm kind of generalizing here, but so that's why I think it's interesting to show these things. But it's become kind of trendy in a good way that the new frameworks are actually using these. So the thing is, we have the form here now, right? So let's come down to the next line, and we've got the form, and you can see there's things in the form like the inputs and all that. But when you run the form, when you create a new form data instance with a form, and we step over it now, I'm just going to come to the console, and I'm going to just show you what the form data looks like now. And in there, okay, it's nothing right now, but if you do, or and it is something I should say. Sorry, if you do form data dot not date, yeah, dot get, and then you say like, for example, I don't know, let's try email. Okay, there's nothing there. Okay, so you're like, okay, what's going on here? The thing is with forms, like, so we have all these IDs here, and these are useful to connect the label to the inputs. But something that's been around for a long time is using a name attribute, and this is how you get access to form data. And this is what's used when you submit stuff to the backend. Like on on the front end, if you're like constructing something with JavaScript, you could still pull out the form data and like I don't know, maybe you make some kind of JSON payload that you're going to send. You can definitely do that, but it's a lot easier again because you have the form data class to just get this data. So why not just leverage stuff that already is in the platform? So I'm gonna call this one, so the name field, I'm gonna give it a name of name. I'll probably say name many times now. And then for the email, I'm gonna say name email. And then for the URL, I'm gonna say name equals URL. I'm gonna save that. It's gonna reload. So we're gonna debug again, but let's put in some real data this time, just so it's pretty clear what's being pulled out here. Now I'm gonna go ahead and submit. We're gonna get our breakpoint again here. I could just put a actual breakpoint, but for now it's fine. Okay, so we're back to where we are. Let's get to the form data. And again, if folks have questions, just go for it. Okay, so I'm going to do the form data. So we've created the form data. Now, let's go in here, and now let's get email. And then now you see, because I've added a name attribute, I can start getting stuff out of here. And then I can do URL, etc. And yeah, sure, why not? Let's do name. That's kind of handy way to get access to this. And you get this stuff for free, assuming you're using semantic markup with proper attributes. This is another reason to not do div soup in things. So there's accessibility wins, but also you kind of make your life easier as well. And even though I'm doing this in plain, like just HTML and JavaScript right now, you could still like in the event in like a React, like a on submit, you could still say like e dot target, it would be the form, and then you could still use form data there. And this is, so yes, I'm showing it in something that's kind of more vanilla, but you can definitely still use these things. And honestly, I think something like this just makes more sense instead of like, having some kind of form library to pull out the data, because like the platform literally supports this. So just a side note. Okay, so let's come back in here. I've definitely drank too much coffee today, but that's okay. Where was I? Sources. Okay. So now uh, let's just do this over here in the console first. So form data is an object or object like, so we can actually use object has a from entries. And if we run this, you're going to see that it creates this nice payload for us where it's this object that's got email, Nikki T, name, Nick, URL, and my website. And we didn't have to construct this. Again, just to reiterate, if we come back to the markup here, I use the name attribute and it's in an actual form. So by using the form data, we're able to get this information. So if we come back to the sources here, and at that point, it's just going to log it out and I'll just let it run. And you're also going to see that the form did not submit, like it didn't go back to the server. And that's because of the e.prevent default, like I was mentioning. And also just to show that it'll still prevent the default action. I'm going to put it at the end and I'll get rid of the debugger too. Let's just save that and I'll just put a breakpoint and let's come here again. Let's go ahead and submit this. And we're back in business again. We're using a breakpoint now instead of explicit debugger. So again, if folks want to check out the previous one, I'll find the link for that. So we come here now, and I'm just going to let it run now so that the code's just going to run. And you're going to see the page didn't refresh because you can see my name and everything's still there. And if we check out the console log, it outputted the form data like I was mentioning, because we're using the name attributes and we're using form data and we're using a valid form. Now, one of the things you might have noticed before was like with the form data, I was doing like form data dot get. The other thing that you have access to is, let's get rid of, yeah, let's just get rid of URL for now. And I'm going to make not a radio button group, I'm going to make a checkbox group. So if you've never made a checkbox group, let's see if Copilot can do this for me. Create a checkbox group of 3 items. I'm just being lazy here. Okay, let's go Copilot now. All right, whatever. Let me do it myself. Okay, yes, FeltKit too. Are you using form data yourself? Like you're actually just using it yourself, or is it built into FeltKit now? Like it's something that they recommend. I imagine they probably do recommend it, but cool. Okay, well, let me just make the checkbox. So input type equals checkbox. Name equals, we'll just call it choice. And let's do label. And then we'll just, I'm going to wrap it in it. Just it's as similar as using the for attribute, but I'm just going to say here, or you know what, I'll use it just because we've got the flex box going on here. So label for equals choice 1. And then let's do ID equals choice 1 and choice 1 label. Okay, cool. Let's save that. And I'm just going to copy them. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to add a prettier config real quick. So I have the prettier plugin for VS Code. So as long the way I have it set up is as long as there's a prettier configuration, it will it'll start formatting. So why did it take a screenshot? That's not what I wanted. Cool. Let's do that one more time. And I'm just going to do empty. That should be enough. Cool. Yeah. So it's formatting things now. Okay. So I'm going to add a couple choices here. Or do three. Why not? Choice one, choice two. Kind of explain what's going on here in a second. Okay. Let's save that. And let's come back here. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's straight from the docs. Okay. That's good to know. No, it's really nice seeing everybody going that way. All right, so let's put Nick at nickT.co. And okay, so first things first, again, this is we're using semantic markup, but an accessibility win of associating the labels with especially checkboxes because checkboxes can be super tiny. I don't know how many times I've been on a website and I'm like trying to laser focus, find the checkbox. As long as you associate it to the label, I can just do it there. So like clicking on the word right here is way easier than I'm zoomed in at the moment, but normally this would be a lot smaller. So let's do a couple things here. So I've only picked two out of the three here. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and submit. And oh, did I take out the debug? Hold on a sec. Sources. Okay, yeah, let's come here. Okay, let's do that again. Okay, and I'm just gonna check my markup. So uh, type checkbox, name choice. Okay, yeah, cool. All right, so I'm gonna submit. Now, let's look at what the form data looks like. So let's clear this. Uh, Form, and then I'm just gonna call this A for now. And so if I do a dot get again, so like I can get my name like I was doing before. Now, with the checkboxes, there's multiple, and hopefully I built this right. So I'm going to say, go get me choice. That's saying on, but if I say get all, okay. So notice here now, you're going to see the choice attribute, the choice form element. It has a couple of things here. So there's only two that are on. And this is actually, you see it's built-in array. And what's happened here is when you have a radio button group or you have a checkbox group, I've used different IDs here to associate the labels. But if you notice, the name is choice for all three. And this is how they get associated. And this is, again, if you're using semantic markup, you don't have to struggle with like, okay, which check boxes did they check? Okay, let me go get the one that was ID choice one, the one that was ID choice two, choice three. The fact that you're using the name attribute just brings them all together. And in this case here, it's showing that there's the two elements, the first and the second one, and they're on. Um, I can't remember why it says on, but I mean, on means it's selected, but I'm just trying to remember because it's been a while with actually this. So let's come through here. So I have the form data now, and then I'm going to get the data and clear that. Of course, clear. And if we look at the data, it's saying choice on. And the thing I'm wondering with the form data is why is it only choosing one here? And I wonder if that's because of the way I'm using the form data. I don't think it should matter, but let's see here. What else is there in here? No. Let's go look at the form data real quick. All right. Format form data dot entries. Get returns an array of all the values associated with a given. Yeah, let me zoom this in. Sorry. Yeah, so like I was showing you before, form data dot get all gets the array of the values. But I'm curious why the entries, because like when we did it here, come back to where was it? Back here. If we come back into the project here, so we've got our form data. Let's do the entries. So let's clear that. Form data dot entries. Oops. Okay. Just turn this into an array maybe. So let's see here. Okay, so it's got everything in there. So there's my name. So these are entries. So entries get broken up into an array where the key is the first value and the value is the second value. So name, Nick, email, nick@nickyt.co. The difference here is because we have the choice, it's there multiple times, which is fine. But I'm curious why getting the entries. Oh, you know what it is? It's actually the example that Copilot gave. Because what's happening is here in our code, we're saying from entries and it's creating an object so it's the same key. That's why it's not working. So not good here. So essentially we have all the information in there. And then at that point, you could submit this to a server to process the data here. Now, what we can do is because we haven't touched on it yet, but let me get rid of this, and then yeah, let's come back up here. There's a few other things. So like we talked about the name. There's also the action. So the action is where you want this to go. So if you don't specify an action, it just goes back to the page. So for example, if I change this to /YOLO, I'm not going to find this page after, but let's come back here for a second and let's just fill this out. Submit. Is it not going back? Method get action YOLO. Why is it not liking that? 2 seconds here. Method. So there's another thing here which is related to the action, which is the method. So the method, you can have a get and a post. There appears to be a dialog now, which is new. But like the default one is get, so it goes back to the page itself. So, and you can see that, for example, like I've got the form information, and let's for a second just not do the JavaScript stuff. So we'll still let the JavaScript run if we want, but I'm going to have it actually submit the form. And let's close this for a second. Let's do nick@nickyt.co, choice 1, choice 2, and I'm going to submit. Now, you can't see this because it's zoomed in, but I'll paste it in the here in the chat. But you're going to see here, this is obviously a local host, but you're going to see, because the method was get by default, it's kind of like a search. So that's why you have the query string parameters here. But what you're going to notice is if I just break down the key value pairs from the form submission, is you're going to see my name equals Nick, email equals nick@nickyt.co. That's just encoded. And then you're going to see, this is the interesting part. So you're going to see there's the choice equals on and choice equals on twice. And that's because we selected the first two. And so if you were to do a post, which is going back, well, they both go back to the server. With the post, it wouldn't show up in the query string here. It would get sent, and we can show that even though we don't have an actual backend. So we can do that. But I just wanted to try one other thing first too. Um, I'm here, and I'm not going to choose the middle choice. So let's submit it now. And did that on. Oh, hold on. Let me start fresh. It's got a query string in it already. Let's start fresh here with just the index.html. And then let's do t.co, choice 1, and choice 3. I'm hoping that it should say off for the middle one. It doesn't appear to, so I'm wondering what I'm doing wrong there. Because I'm the reason why I'm wondering is because if I paste this back here, um, it's got the choice twice, but I was expecting one of them to be off, or like I was expecting it to look like this maybe, and maybe that's something I've got to check up on because I haven't actually submitted multiple checkboxes in a while. But the nice thing about it, when you do submit this to a server, if you're using a framework, whether that's Express, which is older, or a newer framework, there's typically things built in to actually convert this into an array. Or again, you can just get the form data based on like Brian was saying in the chat there. So like when you post it, you can just get the form data using the form data on the server side too. But I am kind of wondering why the choice I didn't select is not going in the middle there. That's something I will have to look up after because it's kind of bothering me now. Okay, so let's come back there. There's a few other interesting things I wanted to show as well. So let's, for example, let's just make this a button for a second. And I'll prevent default still. And so instead of a form submission, it's going to be a click. So I'm just going to say get button. And I would typically go with using the form instead, but let's go ahead and do this. And let's just put a few things in here. All right. Okay. So we've got that there. Make sure I have a breakpoint still. Where's my index? HTML. All right. Okay, let's put a breakpoint in there and I'm going to submit. So now we've got a click event on the button. And so the event now, so like if we look at the event.target, it's no longer the form, which is expected because we added the event listener to the button. But the thing that can get interesting is e.form. Is it that one? I feel like that's lying. No, that's not it. I think it'd have to be on an element. Okay, yeah, let's do that on a checkbox. So let's do input instead. And I'm not saying you would normally do this. I just want to show something when you do this. Oh yeah, you're right, Brian. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, it's the it's the radios to say which one got selected. Yeah, you're totally right. Yeah, no, thank you for that. Okay, no, perfect. Yeah, good call. Thank you for checking that. Yeah, I was trying to group them that way, but actually it really is the radio buttons makes more sense because if you have radio buttons and they have different names, then you can click them independently and they'll all stay selected. So yeah, so that's my goof. So that's also why it's saying on. So the radio button was on, and we got it twice because I had two with the same name, even though it's a checkbox. But But yeah, that's a good call. Thanks for debugging that live with me. Cool, cool. All right, so let's click on one here. Is it this one? Document.query selector dot input. Oh, not the first one. Input checkbox. Yeah. So let's just do, well, yeah, let's do that. Let's do it on the checkbox. So, and again, this is not necessarily how you would submit a form, but I just want to show you something that's available to you on form elements. So let's save this. I'm going to click on it. Okay, so now we're going to come in here and e.target is the input as expected. But another interesting thing is e.target.form, and you have access to the form again. So like there could be cases where like, hey, I need access to that form when you're like doing something in JavaScript, but you have like the element and you're like, how do I go and, like instead of doing like another query selector or something else to get the actual form, as long as the form element that you're working with is in a form, you'll have access to this form property. So this is just, again, kind of like another way to hit these things here. I'm just doing a quick time check. We got about 8 minutes left. I don't think we're going to have a chance to build out a CRUD app today to showcase this, but uh, the whole point here is really just to show a few things like primers on different ways you can access forms and elements within them. I'm going to drop another link. This is a blog post I wrote a little while back. I think this might have even been in 2019. But it's just called HTML Forms Back to Basics. And it talks about some of these things that I'm mentioning. And the other thing that you have access to is, so let's call this form. Okay, and I'm just going to clear this so we have a bit more space. There's also form.elements. I mentioned this the in my blog post I just dropped there. But this is another way to get access to the elements. And again, if these things are all within the form, you will have access to them, assuming they're semantic form elements like inputs and selects and text areas, etc. So again, just another way to access these things. The other things, just trying to see what else we can look at. I'm just going to look at my notes real quick. Been a bit of a busy week, so form elements, form data. Yeah, we talked about when the target. Okay, and then on submit. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, I've covered most of the things I wanted to talk about. So again, one thing, like I mentioned before, that Austin Gill suggested is if you are going to be handling form submissions through JavaScript, I definitely agree with them now after having spoken with them on my stream that putting the prevent default at the end makes complete sense, because if you get some kind of either syntax error or even like just an actual error being thrown, the prevent default will have already happened. So I think that's in terms of like progressive enhancement, it makes total sense to be doing that. The last few things here, because we just got a few minutes left here, is well, why don't we do for fun? Let's give these checkboxes different names. So say choice 1, choice 2, choice 3, and you know what? Let's put the radio buttons in, and I think that's where we'll see it here. Uh, Actually, let's forget the radio buttons for a second. Let's just show what Brian helped me debug there. Oh, and let's go back to just using the form and submit. Okay, here. All right. There. Go. we're just gonna choose two of them, and I'm gonna submit. Oh, choice on. I think it's still got the old code. Choice, because I see it up top there. Let me just double check if I did that right. Name is choice one. Name is choice two. Name is choice three. So that seems okay. Let's refresh that here. Okay, that seems okay. I'm just gonna check the code. Form data, styles, choice one, choice two. Okay, that's good. All right, okay, cool. So Nick at nicket.co. And let's choose two of them. And I'll put a breakpoint in here again in the index.html. Also, just a side note, sometimes when you're prototyping, I'll have two choice. Okay, I do. Okay, let me check there, Brian. While I'm fixing that, okay, wait. Choice one, choice one, choice one, choice two, choice two, choice two. Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Choice three. Cool. Thank you. The other thing I was going to say is like sometimes just iterating on things, like to do a proof of concept, like I'm kind of doing maybe not best practice here. Like I have my style section in here, I have script right in here, but it's just it's a quick way to hack around with things, and I find it kind of refreshing sometimes, like especially when you're trying to prove something out. Obviously, it depends what it is. You might need your actual framework for what you're doing, but okay, so let's do this again. And thank you, Brian, again for helping me debug live. This is why I always like chat. All right, cool. And there, and I'm going to submit it now. Why is it not? Did the form not submit? Document.query selector form. Add event listener, submit. That all looks good. Let's do this again. Maybe be explicit. We got a couple minutes, so this will be a fun way to end things. All right. Why is it not? Did my live server died maybe? Live server. Okay, let's try again. Just use choice one, choice two. Okay, my debugger died. I'm clearly doing something wrong here. The ID in choice three is, oh yeah, no, that I already fixed. Yeah, no, I think it is outputting in the console. No, it isn't. There's something I did in the code that document.query selector, add event listener, submit. Everything looks okay here. Okay. I'm not sure what's up, but we've got like a minute left here, so I'm just gonna do this. Document.forms 0. Add event listener, submit. All right. We'll try one more time. And if this doesn't work, well, that's the end of the stream for today, but that's okay. Live coding, things don't always go as planned, and that's okay. Submit one more time. Okay, it's not doing it. Oh yeah, I had prevented default. Oh yeah, no, I've got prevent default, so it should still be good. That's weird. Let me just make sure everything's working. This is classic test. Okay, alert's working. Document dot. All right. Yeah, no, I know I prevented default, but I'm not sure why that's still, like, I'm not trying to submit it without the JavaScript. Oh my God, I didn't save it. Autosave's not on. I have autosave in other projects. Okay, Nick at whatever, and then there. I think that's it. Oh, what's going on? Ah! All right. Well, anyways, we're at time here, but this is kind of like a whirlwind of just looking at some form APIs, things you can put in forms, some good practices in terms of like accessibility, adding labels and stuff, URLs for like the type. For example, to validate a type. We touched briefly on like the required attribute, and just many different ways you can access a form itself. Um, I hope this was maybe entertaining or helpful. Again, you might not necessarily do this in your framework, like all the things I showed, but I think it's important to kind of understand some things under the hood. So, um, with that, thanks everybody, and I'll see you in the next one. There's some other CFE dev events dropping. I think there's next week. If Brian, if you want to drop that in the chat. If not, just go to cfe.dev. And yeah, thanks everybody.